Hello, my name is Patricia Potts, and welcome to this recording of My Journey from Darkness to Light. It is read to you by me, not Patty Perfect, but Patricia Imperfect. One day when my daughter Cindy was young, she could tell I was sad, so she drew me a picture of a happy girl and wrote, "It's okay to make mistakes." It is with that belief I now offer this recording to you. It was not recorded in a professional studio and will have some pauses and imperfections. Yet despite its flaws, I believe my journey from darkness to light has much to offer. It is a story of recovery and a story of hope. In this book, as I walk through my discouragement, depression, bipolar illness, and more, I pray that you may find your own light as I have found mine. Sincerely, Patricia Potts.
Part 1. First Depression. If I just try hard enough, everyone will like me. The first depression I lived through was totally unexpected. I was a young mother with 2 daughters and another on the way. I went from being a fully functioning wife, mother, church worker, preschool teacher, and daycare provider to being dysfunctional for 3 months. One major downfall, as I learned later in life, was approval addiction. My dream was to please everyone so that everyone would be happy with me. The night I realized I would never have my dream was the night my life changed forever. Chapter 1. What made me a likely candidate for depression? Lucky break. The 4th grade recess bell rang. My classmates, led by Mrs. Hanson, migrated to the playground. All but Sherry and I, that is. We both brought notes from home that morning because of our colds. What a lucky break, I thought, getting to stay in from recess with Sherry Hanson, the most popular girl in class. Maybe if I impress her, I can get enough votes to be an officer. Normally, Sherry paid no attention to me. Today, however, we were stuck together, and she seemed willing to make the best of it. We talked about boys, about Mrs. Hanson, and about the ones who were wearing the right kind of clothes that day. Fortunately, I was in the okay group that day. Then, in the middle of a sentence, I sensed a warning signal from my body telling me that it was time to hightail it to the restroom. I was too embarrassed, however, to just pick up and leave in the middle of my big chance at popularity, and I quickly sent a message to my body telling it that I could not be interrupted just now. 3 minutes later, my body overrode my mandate. My face grew uncomfortably warm as I looked past my trembling knees to the puddle on the green tile floor below. I hoped that by some miracle Sherry wouldn't notice, but how could she help but notice? There was nowhere to go, no trap door in the floor to open up and swallow me, no invisible button that I could push. The definite, undeniable odor in our 4th grade classroom gave me away. I knew I was at Sherry's mercy to keep my bladder blunder a secret. "Sherry," I pled, as I grabbed paper towels from the back of the room, "please don't tell anyone. My mom can get me, and nobody needs to know. Please." Sherry looked from the pedal to me as I scurried to and from the sink at the back of the room. She plopped herself on a school desk, smiled, and vowed, "Oh, I won't tell anybody. Promise." The mess was cleaned up before the bell rang, and I heard the kids come bounding through the door at the front of the room while I ducked out the back door. I was just in the middle of thinking how glad I was that Sherry had promised to keep quiet when I heard her laughter echoing like sonic booms through the halls. "You should have seen it," Sherry exclaimed. "A big yellow puddle, and the smell was terrible. She's not Patty Too, she's Patty Pooh." Patty Pooh. The nickname Patty Pooh stuck to me like Texas humidity for the next 3 years. If one of my classmates wanted to call another kid in school a dirty name, they would simply shout, "Patty Pooh to you!" Unfortunately, the abuse was not limited to verbal assaults. After school in the winter, I had rock snowballs thrown at me until my legs stung as badly as the tears that ran down my cheeks. In an effort to win friends when I was in 4th grade, I used to take things from home. Paper punchers, staplers, candy, anything I could sneak out, and put them in the pocket of my Swiss dirndl dress, a dress with a built-in white short-sleeved blouse and a black velvet lace-up vest covering the bodice. The skirt was made of black and red plaid. During recess, my classmates would line up by the coat rack for a chance to fish a prize out of my front vest. The saddest part of this plan, however, was that when I ran out of prizes, I also ran out of friends. The kindest girl in class. 5th grade passed a bit more quietly as I tried to melt into the corner. When 6th grade rolled around, I sat in Mr. Cook's class at the back row, bracing myself for the next Patty Pooh comment. On the first day of school, Mr. Cook announced that he would have a kindness contest each week. He would pass out papers and let everyone write who they thought the kindest girl and boy was, and those classmates would then get their names on the chalkboard for a week. Could I ever win? I was sure I'd never be popular, but maybe, just maybe, if I tried hard enough, I could be the kindest. The idea bounced within me as I determined right then and there to do whatever it took to get my name on the chalkboard. The white chalk remained poised in Mr. Cook's hand. Could this be the beginning of the end of my friend woes? As I walked home from school that day, I passed the canal that ran along the side of the road. Looking down at the tiny tadpoles swimming upstream, I vowed that someday I was going to be voted kindest girl in Mr. Cook's classroom. Mr. Cook's contest was a turning point in my life. Instead of bringing stolen prizes from home, I brought 2 sets of jacks. I loved playing jacks, and I was pretty good at it. But after having spent many lonely hours playing jacks, I decided that the kindest person would probably share her jacks with others and let the other kids win too, even if that meant losing to an inferior jacks player. In addition to sharing jacks, I picked up paper clips or anything that was dropped. I tried to go to the end of the lunch line, and I was constantly on the lookout for anyone who was sad, so I could listen to them. Finally, the day came when I looked up to find my very own name etched in bold chalk letters on Mr. Cook's blackboard. I skipped all the way home from school and shouted my joy to the tadpoles that had, by that time, turned into frogs. They even seemed to jump for joy for me. My long brown hair flew wildly as I ran home to share my good news with my mom, and I decided that very day that winning votes was the greatest feeling in all the world. Winning votes. That contest was the beginning of many more contests. As the years passed, I had my share of wins and losses. As a teenager, I read a book about winning a man. I decided that if I could just follow the instructions on the way to say and do things, I would win my man. As I practiced on the males around me, I was careful to mind all the rules about making them feel masculine, witty, and wise. I met my future husband, Dan, when I was 15 years old. When I was 20 years old, Dan and I were married. By the time I was 26, we had 2 daughters. I felt that by taking care of the kids, helping to bring in the money through running a preschool and daycare, and trying to be a good wife, I was doing all I could to make my husband happy. Despite my efforts, however, there were still times that no matter how hard I tried, the house, the kids, or my carefully laid plans just didn't go right, and Dan didn't always seem pleased. It was at this time that I discovered a book by the same author as my Winning a Man book that guaranteed The secrets of truly making your husband happy. I made up my list of wonderful woman to-dos and added them to my nice neighbor church preschool teacher and my Patty Perfect lists. Although I began saying some of the things the book suggested, Dan obviously hadn't been included in the author's study group because he didn't seem to respond the way the book said he should. Instead of bringing us closer, it seemed at times to have the opposite effect and added more to my mountains of to-do lists. Please tell me I'm okay. By the time I was 27, I realized that I wasn't going to receive the daily doses of approval from Dan that I thought I needed, so I continued looking for them from others. I increased the number of students in my daycare and preschool, and soon I had 42 students and 2 employees. I tried to be the first one to welcome new neighbors and make sure that all my church assignments were completed promptly. Sure enough, my efforts began bearing fruit and bringing "You're okay" votes. I thought my plan was succeeding until the day Johnny chose to swing his chair around and around at the end of the preschool class. He refused to listen to me or anyone else. He knocked a few kids down who got too close. Just at this awkward moment, the parents began arriving to pick up their children. I was embarrassed at the sideway looks and hurried retreats that shouted so loudly to my heart, "What's wrong with you? Can't you control him?" I had just blown it in front of all those parents. I had severely disappointed them. Where could I find people who weren't disappointed with me now? When I was in school, there was always some other club to join. Here in real life, I was running out of categories. By my count, I had already disappointed my parents by not being the perfect homemaker and mother, the parents of my preschool and daycare, my preschool students, the employees in my preschool, my siblings by not being a good example, and my own husband and children. I felt that even God must be disappointed in me by now.